Hello, I'm Graham Murray Johnston. This is November the 4th of the year 2014 and I'm recording to you from Houston, Texas on 8501 Watika. I'm originally from South Africa. I was born on May the 15th of 1931 in a town called Bloemfontein, which is between Johannesburg and Cape Town. My parents were Doris Avis Bromfield and Joseph Alexander Johnston. My father was born in Scotland and immigrated with 8 children and his mother to South Africa around 1900. His father was a plumber and they were born in Edinburgh in Aberdeen, Scotland, which is close to a town called Ballater, which is where Balmoral Castle is. My mother was born in South Africa. Her father came from Germany, I understand. No, her father came from England. He was Dorset Paul Bromfield, and he ran away from home when he was 14 and jumped a ship as a cabin boy and went to South Africa, where he had to start life at the age of 14. And my mother was born, as I said, in South Africa, and they married in Cape Town, I would think around the year of 1928. Shortly after that, my father moved to the town of Bloemfontein, where he became the swimming pool manager of a 50-yard swimming pool, where I spent many, many happy years of my life. And my mother was a homemaker, although she kept the tea room or the concession stand at the swimming pool, where she made homemade scones and raspberry jam with whipping cream. I have one brother. His name is Donald. He's a year and a half older than me, and his full name is Donald Alexander. The Alexander comes from a long line of Johnstons from Scotland. So it's we have some children now and grandchildren now that also have the name of Alexander. I went to a school called Brebner High School, although it was a grade school in Bloemfontein, as did my brother. But at the beginning of the Second World War, my father was called up into the armed forces. He served in the Air Force, the Navy, and the infantry in one war. Although he never actually went to battle, he was in war in the First World War in the princes of France. And luckily he was one that was not killed. His brother Cameron was 18 years old when he was killed in the trenches in France. While my father was in the Air Force, my mother decided to move us to another school which was called Grey College. And Grey College was very, very strong on sports. And we were very active in sports. As a matter of fact, I had lettered in 5 sports at Grey College. And it was during that time that my swimming really started taking some effect. And my brother and I competed against each other continually every summer. We did not have an indoor swimming pool, so we had to swim outdoors, and we could only swim for about 4.5 to 5 months in the summer. However, the swimming paved my way to going to international competition, and the first place I went, chosen by the country, was to Auckland, New Zealand, where I competed and won 2 gold medals and 2 silver medals in the mile and the quarter mile. 2 years later I went to Vancouver, no, 4 years later I went to Vancouver, Canada, and competed in the same events and did faster times and also won the gold and the silver medals. This was a precursor to my coming to the United States, because when I went to New Zealand, I met a man on a track team who was a broad jumper, long jumper, and when we became friends, and when we went back to South Africa, a team of collegiate track people went to South Africa for the first ever competition with American track team. And Neville Price, who was the man that was responsible for my coming to the United States, met with a man on the team whose father was the track coach at the University of Oklahoma. And he persuaded Neville and his father to accept a scholarship to the University of Oklahoma. And I was working at that time out of high school in a savings and loan, which was a terrible job, miserable. So I wrote to my friend Neville and told him to see if he could get a scholarship for me. And the long and the short of it was that I was finally offered a scholarship to go to the University of Oklahoma. So at that time I was raising chickens. I had a 1,000-egg incubator and selling dressed chickens and eggs and exporting day-old chickens all up and down Africa. So I sold out what I could, left the rest to my brother, and my mother put in half of my expenses to travel to the United States. I spent almost 2.5 weeks between the time I left Cape Town until the time I got to the United States. And that was the beginning of a new era for me, because I was now going to university. And the first year that I was at the university, I met a young woman by the name of Janice Catherine Thompson. Janice was a freshman and I was, and she was from Oklahoma City, although she was born in Waco, Texas. And we started dating together and courted and right through college for 4 years, and we got married in December, on December the 16th in Oklahoma City at the First Baptist Church. And since then we have been together. This is our 59th year of being husband and wife, and also if you count the 4 years we courted before that, so we've actually been married for 63 years. And while at the University of Oklahoma, I was selected by South Africa to go to the Olympic Games in Helsinki, Finland, and that was shortly after I met Janice. Upon graduation from university, I interviewed for a job with a company called Gardner Denver, who made mining equipment. And the upshot was that they hired me at $400 a month, which was top pay in those days for a college graduate, because you could buy a hamburger and a malt for 50 cents in those days. Anyway, after about a year of training in Denver, Grand Haven, Michigan, Pittsburgh, and New York City, I was sent to South Africa, although the original intention was for me to go to the Katanga region of the Belgian Congo to the copper mines, but there was a civil war going on, so they decided to ship me to South Africa. So I was shipped to a town called Welkom, which was a small mining town where they were busy drilling shafts to go down to the gold ore, and it was my job to sell and service the various types of drilling equipment and pumping equipment that they specialized in. I was there for 2 years, and at the end of 2 years I was called to Johannesburg by the manager of the company, who wanted to discuss my financial situation, and the upshot was that he said, "Graham, you're making too much money, we have to cut your pay." And I said, "Well, look, I had been given certain assurances before I left the United States I would be paid on American dollars equivalent, and also I'd have a trip back to the United States every 3 years, would get an incentive bonus for going overseas," and none of that took place. So when the manager said, "We're going to cut your pay," I pushed my chair away from his desk and said, "I resign." Well, we had taken a car to the South Africa that we bought in Oklahoma. It was a Oldsmobile, and I paid $2,800 for it. And I decided then that we were leaving South Africa because there was not much credence given to a college degree in the United States. They thought you could just write in and pay for one. I felt also that I had better chance economically to be working in the United States rather than in South Africa. And also in addition to that, I could see the future coming, that there were big changes in South Africa on the horizon. So I thought rather than start a family and also a new job, a new business, it would be best to leave. So, and also Janice would be going home, which was another consideration. So we packed up. I sold the car for $2,800 equivalent. That paid for our passage back, shipping our goods in a crate which I'd saved from when we came over to South Africa. And also we bought a Volkswagen in Germany and shipped it back on a ship to New York City, all for the same $2,800 that I'd invested in a car that I sold that probably had 15 or 20,000 miles on it when I sold it. But cars in South Africa, American cars, were not to be had there because it was so expensive to pay the tax, the duties on importing a car. But I got mine in free because there was a rule that said you could have a car for 2 years and then it would be part of your possessions and come in duty-free. After traveling from Cape Town to London and on to New York, which took about 3 weeks, finally arrived in New York City. In those days it took almost a week to fly from London to Cape Town because there were no airports with refueling facilities, and the planes were very slow. They only flew at about 250 miles an hour. You could actually see the propellers turning, they turned so slow. Anyway, I arrived in New York City with $14 in my pocket. Fortunately, the university had arranged for me to take a train from New York City to Akron, Ohio, where the American Amateur Athletic Union swimming competition was, and the coach for the team from Oklahoma, who had given me the scholarship, was there with 2 or 3 of his swimmers. And so we met up there, and I stayed in a hotel with him. And I can remember one morning we were sitting around the counter at the drugstore having breakfast, and the coach said to me, "Help yourself." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Get what you want." There's the menu, and I couldn't believe it that I was actually going to be able to select my own meal. Anyway, after the swimming was over, they had brought 2 Beechcraft Bonanza aircraft from the University of Oklahoma up to Akron, and they had saved 1 seat on the plane for me. So we flew down Oklahoma at about 2,000 feet, and it was all along the Mississippi River, which was flooded in those days. I'd never seen so much water in my life before. Excuse me. Upon arriving at university, it was summertime, and it was extremely hot, over 100 degrees. I had nowhere to live. My friend Neville, who had arranged for my scholarship, was gone working as a roughneck in the oil business in northeastern Oklahoma. So I was on my own. The coach gave me a room under the football stadium, which consisted of a double bunk bed. That was all. And there were showers in there because the football players could shower in there. I had no fan, no air conditioning, and finally the coach arranged for me to get a couple of swimming lessons and gave me the key to the field house swimming pool. So I started giving swimming lessons, and I also had a job at the swimming pool where there were 7 toilets for men and 7 for women. It was an old Navy base from Second World War, and my job was to clean 14 toilets by hand every day. But it made me money, and I was extremely lonely. I cried quite a bit. I was never left home before. I was just a kid, just about 20. And it was a very lonely time until school started in the fall, and Neville came back, and then I was put into a dormitory with other athletes, wrestlers and swimmers and track people and so forth, some football players. And that's when my life started as a student in college. So I started into the University of Oklahoma. I had come thinking I could study agriculture, only to find out that they didn't have an agricultural school. So I decided at that time to switch to a business degree, and I started with a major in marketing and a minor in business. And at that time I'd met Janice, and I wasn't too happy about the fact that I couldn't study agriculture because I'd always wanted to be a farmer and raise chickens. Anyway, I'd met Janice by that time, and I told the coach that I wasn't too happy, and he called one of the other universities, I think it was up in the east somewhere, that had an agricultural school. And the coach there said to the coach in Oklahoma, "We'll take him." And I'd met Janice by that time, and I decided that I didn't need to go up to the east to study agriculture because things were getting pretty thick between Janice and I'd fallen in love. So I stayed at the University of Oklahoma for the 4 years and luckily graduated. I think I was probably the bottom of the class, but nevertheless I never was a very bright student. But about the time of graduation, we were in Oklahoma City for my birthday, May the 15th, and I had bought an engagement ring and a wedding ring for Janice. And so we had a party that night at her folks' house, and I decided to slip the ring to her that evening at the birthday party. So we were in the backyard, and I took the ring out and put it on Janice's finger, and she didn't even squeeze me or hug me or kiss me. She ran inside. She ran straight to the kitchen where her mother was fixing food or something and said, "Look what I have." And she looked down at it. She said, "Oh, that's nice. Whose is it?" This was after courting her daughter for 4 years. Anyway, we got married on December the 16th, and that's when our travel started around the United States, getting brushed up on mining, and then we left for Africa. Well, after 2 years in South Africa, of course, we came back to the United States, and the first thing I wanted to do when we got to New York City, we came across on the Queen Elizabeth, as a matter of fact, from Southampton. I wanted to go to Gardner Denver's head office in the Chrysler building in New York City and complain to the vice president that every one of the agreements that we'd made they welched on and even wanted to cut my pay. So the vice president saw me and he said, "Graham, I don't want to hear your problems, I don't want to hear your troubles. We're in a bit of a recession right now and things are tough." He says, "If you want a job, we'll hire you back." And I said, "Well, that's fine." I had nothing. I didn't even have enough money to go across the George Washington Bridge. Janice's father had to send me a Western Union $100 so we could leave New York City. But we had the VW, and that was what we were going to drive to Oklahoma. Anyway, I decided that I would stay with Gardner Denver, and I said I don't want to go up east because it's too cold, and I don't want to go to Chicago. So where did they ship me? To Chicago. Anyway, we spent 2 years in Chicago. It was very cold in the winter time there, right along Lake Michigan. About that time, Jennifer Lynn Johnston arrived, about 1949, and then shortly thereafter, Kevin Murray Johnston arrived while we were in Chicago. And Jennifer and Kevin spent their first few years in Chicago, and then the cold finally got to me, and I wasn't too happy with the job in Chicago, so I decided that it was time to move to a warmer climate down in the south, in the Sun Belt. During the last days in Chicago, I came down with a problem with my gut. Turned out I had gallbladder, I had a gallstone. So I had to go into the hospital and they sliced me open about 6 inches. In those days they didn't have arthroscopic surgery. So I had to stay in the hospital for a week, and during that time I got phlebitis and couldn't walk. So I was at home for another 2 weeks, and about that time I had just about decided that I'd had enough of Chicago, and the Garden of Denver had had enough of me because I wasn't too happy. The boss was giving some of my commissions to the other man that shared the territory with me. I had south and he had north of the east-west line, and so I wasn't making that much more money than I started with 2 years earlier. So they had a convention in Chicago at that time, the Association of Equipment Dealers, and I decided that since I wanted to go where it was warmer, especially for the kids, I would go to the convention and try to contact people that were representatives from the various construction companies that were in the so-called Sun Belt. So I went to the convention, snuck in, didn't even have a badge, but I managed to get in, and I was all bent over double, and it was colder than Hades, and I met some of the gentlemen who were representing some of the companies in Oklahoma, Florida, California, and Texas. And the upshot was one of the people that I met happened to be from Houston, and one was from Oklahoma. And so when the convention was over, the people from Oklahoma said, well, come on down and we'll interview you. So Janice and I packed the 2 kids on the Texas Chief and went down to Oklahoma through the snows. We got held up twice in the train going south. And I interviewed a company in Oklahoma City and decided to accept a job there. Well, we went back to Chicago, and when we got home there was a telephone call from a man in Houston, and he was the sales manager, and he said, talk to my boss and he wants you to come down for an interview. So he said, get on the plane and come on down as soon as you can. So I didn't even unpack my clothes. I think I caught the first plane out at their expense and flew down to Houston. I left Chicago with about 7-8 inches of snow on the ground, and when I got to Hobby Airport, which was the only airport in those days, it was summer, it was sunny, it was probably about 68, 70 degrees, and I thought, man, what am I doing in Chicago? And those days you had to get down the plane on the steps and walk across the runway into the terminal, and I said, this is the place to be. Anyway, I interviewed, and they decided to give me a 3-month trial and would pay my expenses at the end of 3 months if I was satisfactory for them. And at the end of 3 months, they said, yeah, we want you to stay, and they paid for our move, our furniture and stuff down to Houston. But once I got to Houston, things got better and better, and I was working mostly along the ship channel, Houston ship channel, selling pneumatic tools and portable air compressors and renting portable air compressors. But the company took on 2 major lines, American Crane and Hein Werner hydraulic excavators, and so I was automatically given these lines to sell, and I was moved more or less away from the ship channel area, and had a couple of good sales. One was over $1 million in Lake Charles, and that helped things. And about 2 years after we got here, we found a lot to buy out on Watika for $6,000, and we built a house on it for $34,000. And those prices now, the house after 50 years is probably worth about $400,000. So this is where the life really began. When we got here, we arrived in a rainstorm for 3 days, and we had 2 cars. I bought a $150 Plymouth in Chicago from the lifeguard, and it burned so much oil. I think I used over 20 quarts of oil between Chicago and Houston. I just stopped and poured it in with a bulk oil can, a 2.5-gallon can. And I had the dog and Jenny in the car with me, a Plymouth, Cranbrook, and Janice had the VW. And we started hunting for houses. Finally found a house, $125 a month, and the man wanted a month in advance, and I said, I don't have the money. I can't pay you, so I'll have to start looking. And he said, no, you take the house and pay me at the end of the month. So that worked out well, and the job turned out pretty good, and we went from better to better, and NASA was about to start construction, and fortunately that was part of my territory, so I got to do some big selling to the space agency. All the construction buildings were put up with a lot of my equipment, erected big panels and so forth with cranes. And so things got better about that time, and of course the family started growing. We had the third one was Linda, and then later on Bruce, and then finally Shelley came. And we got the house paid for in about 20 years, and got the kids off to college. Bruce went to Southwest Texas, and at the end of about 3 or 4 semesters he decided that he wasn't really enjoying it. I wasn't giving him enough beer money, and the social life wasn't too good, and then so he dropped out and became a waiter in Houston at Carrabba's, which was a good job for him. And eventually that took him around the world, and he ended up in Hawaii after stopping off in the Pacific and New Zealand, and finally in Australia. And then as far as the rest of the children were concerned, Jenny started in working, I think, for the Cancer Society, and the children first of all went to St. Thomas Episcopal School, where only 4 of them went, because unfortunately while in Chicago, Kevin, when he was about 3 days old, got a tremendous fever of 105 and ended up with a disease, forget the name, I'll tell you in a second. Anyway, he ended up being not retarded, but limited in what he could do. So then Shelley, Linda, and Bruce ended up going to Ballet High, where Bruce played varsity football and varsity baseball, and Linda became head cheerleader and became homecoming queen, and Shelley ended up playing volleyball. And of course they grew up and graduated there. Shelley played in the band, trumpet, and Linda was a cheerleader on the football field, and Bruce was playing football, so I had 3 of the family on the football field at the same time. About that time, I wasn't doing much swimming then. I was still working with the kids, teaching them to swim and helping them, but master swimming started up at about that time, and we'll tell you a little bit about that. About the time that master swimming started, about 1973, our 4 or 5 children were out of the nest and into high school, so I had a little bit more time after 17 years of hiatus from swimming at the Oklahoma University. I started into the master's program in 1973, and it was in its infant stages. The second year that it was held was in Santa Monica, California, and I went to compete. It was 1 pool, no warm-up pool. I think I swam the mile at about 11:30 at night, because it was men and women combined in 1 pool. Anyway, since then things have grown tremendously, where master swimming is a program all around the world for hundreds of thousands of people. I've done fairly well in masters. I've been to 6 or 7 world championships all over the world. I've swum in 5 open water long distance world championships in England, Germany, New Zealand, Canada, California, and in my age group I've won all of them. And also in age group swimming, masters, long distance swimming, you have 7 events in each age group, from a 10,000 meter on down to a 1,000 yard swim, and at one time I held 7 records in 3 different age groups: 60 to 65, 65 to 70, and 70 to 75. 21 national records, and it's never been done before where anybody has had more than 5 or 6 in one age group, and I had 21 in 3 different age groups. Anyway, to go on with the master swimming, I swam the Straits of Gibraltar, and also that was about 5 years ago, where I swam from Spain to Morocco in about 5 hours. Also have swum across the Hawaiian Maui Straits of Hawaii from Lanai to Maui, which was a solo swim that took me 8.5 hours in extremely rough weather, because it was one of the worst weathers that they'd had in 15 years, they said. I also tried to swim the English Channel. Unfortunately, I got hypothermia after about 13 miles and I had to be pulled out unconscious. I've also done a number of other open water swims. I swam from Cape Town, from Robben Island, where Mandela was imprisoned, to Cape Town in just over 2 hours, and the water was 51 degrees without a wetsuit on. The same with the swim in the English Channel. The water was 52 degrees, and here I was going from a temperature of 82 degrees, 83 degrees to 51 or 52 degrees, which was a bit of a shock. Anyway, the master swimming continues now. Janice and I have traveled all over the world doing these competitions, and the moment up to now I have set 94, 95 world master swimming records. Of course, I don't hold all of them anymore. A lot of them have all since been broken, but I'm hoping to, in a year and a half, swim in the new age group of 85 plus, and hopefully I'll get those other 5 or 6 world records, and that will be the first time any master swimmer, male, has achieved 100 records in world master swimming. I've done a number of other open water long distance swims. I did 3 from the Cove in La Jolla to the Scripps Oceanic Pier. Won my age group 4 or 5 times, I think. I've also swum from Capitola to Santa Cruz, which was a 7-mile swim, and in that section I had a paddler with me, and I hit something in the water. Don't know what it was, but I got all scratched up my face and my shoulder and was bleeding all over, and about a mile offshore at that time, about 3 miles to go. And when I ran out on the beach, they said, "Oh, you're bleeding all over, what happened to you?" I said, "I don't know, I hit something big and it flooded and took off." And they said, "Well, we don't know what it was. I think it was a turtle and maybe it raked me." And they said, "Well, it could have been one of these sunfish, mola." Anyway, when I ran up the beach, they said, "You should not have stayed in the water, you should have gotten out with a paddler." I said, "Well, it was a one-man paddler canoe. I should have swum to the beach, and that was a mile away." They said, "Last year this swim was cancelled because of the sharks in the area." Anyway, that was another swim. But the swim that we have coming now is the projected one for next year, where 6 men over 80 years old will attempt to swim from behind Catalina Island to the mainland in a relay of 6 men. And it'll be a big thing if it happens, and hopefully we'll manage to complete it, and it could go viral. Through the years, I've probably won over 1,000 or more awards in swimming, starting when I was 6 years old. This one is probably one of my favorite, because it was when I was inducted into the International Swimming Hall of Fame in Fort Lauderdale, which is a recognized governing body for Masters Swimming, and this was awarded to me in 1998. About 2 years later, I was inducted into the Masters International Swimming Hall of Fame, and that was strictly for, at that time, adults over the age of 20. It is now 18 years of age, and I was inducted into the Masters Swimming Hall of Fame, which would be my second award after the International Swimming Hall of Fame, not the Masters Swimming Hall of Fame. That was in 2000. In 2003, I got an additional award from the International Masters Swimming Hall of Fame, which gave me my third ribbon to wear with this medal, which was for the International Masters Hall of Fame in 2000. To continue with the Swimming Hall of Fame awards, besides getting the red sash which you saw a minute ago, I was given this plaque which reads the International Swimming Hall of Fame presented to Graham Johnston, and the year was 1998. And the picture, of course, is of me with my goggles on my head. To continue, these two medals were given to me in New Zealand, in Auckland, in 1950 at the so-called British Commonwealth Games. And I got a first and a second in gold. And then 2 years later, I repeated again in Vancouver, Canada, where I won the first and the second silver and gold in the same events, which was the mile and the quarter mile. The next one was from Lake Mead, and that was a 1 mile and a 3 mile swim in the dam above the Boulder Dam, and this was picked up off the bottom as I was coming out after finishing, and I came first in both of those events. These medals were presented at the National Senior Games, which were held in Johnston 4 years ago, and I think they're one of the prettiest medals with the colored ribbons that I've seen. And these were from the World Senior Games in St. George, Utah. Now this globe here was presented to me as a Swimming Hall of Fame in St. George, Utah. I was one of 2 out of 13 that got a Hall of Fame medal. In 1954 in Vancouver, Canada, I swam again in the British Commonwealth Games, and I won a gold and a silver, as I did in Auckland, New Zealand, and I broke the records which I set in Auckland, New Zealand 2 years earlier. The medal on my right hand was presented to me by the Duke of Edinburgh, who was in attendance with the Queen of England and actually shook my hand when he presented the medal to me. This framed photograph was presented to me by a good friend who was a master swimmer who unfortunately is now dead. His name was Tom Ellison, and he and I swam the swim from the back of the Alcatraz prison without wetsuits to the mainland of San Francisco, and it was in 1957, and I came in 13th place and Tom Ellison came in 12th. The next day at 8 o'clock we swam across the San Francisco Bay at the Golden Gate Bridge, and we reversed that where actually I came in 11th and he came in 12th. And he presented this to me, and he said at the bottom, "You can neither win nor lose unless you walk into the arena." And that was from Tom Ellison, and he was a very good friend and sadly missed now. Moving along, I did the Alcatraz swim and the San Francisco Bay swim at 8 o'clock in the morning, 2 days in a row. And Tom Ellison, who I told you about earlier, swam with me. And we came in 12th and 13th, or 13th and 12th on both the swims. Most of the swimmers, about 75%, had wetsuits on. We went pure without wetsuits on. There were 2 women on the ferry boat that jumped in right at the last minute to swim to the start of the line, and they had no clothes on. They had white terry cloth robes on, and when we got to the other side, I told Janice to take a picture of one of the women coming out of the swim, and fortunately she'd taken the last picture on the roll of film, so she never got that one. Anyway, that's Alcatraz, and from there on we went over to the World Masters Swimming Championships in Munich, Germany. That is where they held the Olympics a few years prior to that. And that ended with me swimming the World Long Distance Championship for my age group. And I won that one, and also the one in Munich, England, New Zealand, California, and one other. There were 5 that I swam, and I won them all in my age group. Most of them were in very cold water, and a lot of people backed out before they could finish. And moving on to the 2001 swim that took place. It was the World Masters Games in 2001, and those medals were all gold. And then following that down, the La Jolla swim was just close to San Diego, and I swam that about 4 times. And the 1 mile was first. It was a Masters division, and I won each one of the Masters 1 miles, and then immediately after getting out of the older Masters group, you had to go into the open water distance swim, which was from the cove in La Jolla to the Scripps Oceanic Pier and back. And it was a tough swim every time because there was a lot of kelp there, and when you're swimming in kelp, you cannot move your arms forward. Anyway, I did about 4 or 5 of those, and I probably won't do any more. And coming up to the top, there was a swim out in Puerto Rico. And that picture was taken of me in Puerto Rico, where I set about 3 Masters world records in my new age group. Below that is the team that represented the Dads Club in 1993, and I raised the money for the airfares and the rooms for the team. And we swam 6 on a team. Each one did 30 minutes, and then the next swimmer took over, and then after we'd done 2 rounds of 6, we went to 10-minute sections. And the team, as I say, was a mixed team. There were 3 women and 3 men. And on the top picture you'll see our son Bruce. He's sticking his ugly head out in the background there. He was our big supporter for that swim, and we enjoyed having him along. And as you can see, these medals here represent a lot of years of diligent hard work and hard swimming, but they represent nothing because they're just things. They are just things, and all they mean is the travel, the dining out, the friends that we've met, and having a good time with my wife Janice, supporting me 100% of the time. And then at the far right is a set of medals that was won in Canada, in Calgary, and that was one of the Canadian National Championships that I was lucky to go to. A collection of plaques that have been won through the years. I don't want to identify them, but that's an excellent place to put them because you don't have to hang them anywhere. But they all represent another swimming meet in another town or another country. and that's a nice place to exhibit them. And then as far as the medals are concerned, this is a collection of medals with a very convenient place to hang them, which I wasn't aware of until I found this. And then moving across the medals, which represent World Championships, National Senior Games Championships, Huntsman World Championships, going all the way to the corner over here. And then below it, unwrapped, are a number of medals, probably as many as 100 maybe, which will probably never be unwrapped because there's absolutely nowhere to keep them. Beginning over here is one of the memorable mementos that I have from my beginning with the University of Oklahoma. This was a sea letter which I sent to my parents saying that I'd arrived in England and I was on my way to New York City on the Washington, which was a demobilized troop ship, and there were about 8 or 10 of us in one cabin in double bunk beds. Most of the immigrants were going over there from Ireland and some other countries in Europe who couldn't speak English. This one is particularly memorable because that is an affidavit from the coach at the University of Oklahoma guaranteeing me my scholarship of room, books, board, tuition, and $15 a month. And that is what set me coming to the United States. So that is really the first step of a long, long journey. The next ones are of All-American certificates, which I was awarded while I was at the University of Oklahoma. And the way you won those awards is you had to place well in the National Collegiate Championships. Now going across to the top is a collage that was given to me by a friend that I met at the National Senior Games in Cleveland. It's difficult to see it from this point of view because it's a little busy, but if you continue on to the left, you will see some more of the plaques, which are very handily placed up on the cornice board, and that's probably the best place to leave them because they're out of the way. Then when you come down to the medals, it's an additional collection of medals from many places, many countries, over many years. And then behind the curtain here is some medals which I haven't had a place to put out because the windows are full on the sill. So these are some more medals that were collected, which I've not even taken out the bag. As you can see, they are from previous World Championships, I think. Moving on to another segment, the top framed certificate is my membership in the Oklahoma University Varsity O Club. Any lettermen were entitled to become members of the Varsity O Club, which had some exclusive rights as athletes, and that was my certificate for the Varsity O Club. Now, coming down to the next picture, that's a certificate which I won 3rd place in the National AAU Masters Diving Championship. I was a junior national champion diver in South Africa, and when I was 18, came first out of about 18 competitors, and that was the certificate they gave me at the Woodlands when I dived there. The following framed picture is probably one of my greatest reliefs and accomplishments. That is my American citizenship papers when I was given citizenship to the United States, and that probably was one of the things that has meant more to me than anything else in my life, becoming an American citizen and living in this country. The next one down is of myself in Vancouver, Canada, and I was representing South Africa at the British Commonwealth Games, and the picture on the left is our warm-up suits, and on the right was our official dress uniforms that we wore into the stadium, and that was in 1954. This is a temporary collage that we made of the World Masters Swimming Championships in Perth, Australia, and it features a series of shots of my swimming one of my races, and you can see the various positions and the finish at the bottom, and then at the way down at the bottom is the results of the swim. The medals that you see, the 6 gold medals of which I won at the Perth Championships. In addition, there was one more, which was the open water 3-mile swim down the Swan River into the ocean in Perth. And it wasn't a good swim because the water was full of jellyfish, and also I got some kind of a bug infection in the water there, and they've never been able to cure it. Something from the Far East, and unfortunately the bottom of my lungs are now dead, I'm told, from this infection I got in Perth, Australia. But I'm doing okay and still coughing a little bit, but I'm surviving. To the left there's a picture of a certificate that I got from the University of Oklahoma for my Bachelor of Business Administration graduation, with a medal which they presented as an alumni. And that was in 1955, the year that Janice graduated and I graduated, and the year that we married on December the 16th. Going up to the next picture, there's a frame picture that was given to me by my high school in Bloemfontein, South Africa, a great college, and they had a special night. They called it the Night of the Legends, and this was given to all of the athletes that came that were honored by the high school for various sporting successes. Mine, of course, was awarded to me as a 3-time representative for South Africa in 3 games that I attended. It was a lovely night. My brother was one of the legends too, and we had a beautiful sit-down dinner with wine, and everybody had to give a little speech. It was quite an affair from my high school. The one above that is also from Great College, and that is a special award that they were given to me for not only my achievements at Great College, but for my later achievements as a master swimmer. And the date on that is 1955, and that was after I'd finished the Olympics. Up on the left is a picture of Janice and I that was taken on the beach in Maui after one of my swims across from the Lanai Island to the Maui Island. The one on the left of that is a picture of the cover of one of the programs for the Helsinki 1952 Olympics, which I attended. And the following one is a cover picture frame of the Swimmer magazine, which the picture was taken of me swimming the individual medley 4x100 meters or 4 strokes, which I swam in Stanford, California. Without describing which each one of these plaques represents, I'll just let you look from the bottom up to the top. There are various memorabilia that have been placed on little wooden plaques, and they start with the World Masters Championship, FINA World Record, US Masters All-American, and on up that's an open lake water swim. And then the various badges which we get, which we can place on our swimsuit warm-ups, and they don't all need to be explained, but they represent a number of different places in the United States and a couple in the world where we have gone to compete. Above that, to the left, is a couple of interesting pictures because we have two insurance policies with a insurance company that covers Janice and I for long-term care and also for extended care. And when we were at the swimming meet, which was the national championships, about 12 of the members from the insurance company came to the swimming pool during work hours with their boss, and they came and cheered for me. There was actually one long plaque like that, one long piece of information like that, and they took a lot of pictures. And after I'd done my swimming, they all gathered around and we chatted for a while, and then we went to the head office for the company, and it was Physicians Mutual, and we sat at a long round table, about 12 of us, and the vice president and CEO of the insurance company came down and joined us for lunch in their restaurant, and then I was taken with Janice on a tour of the whole building. So it was a nice thrill to be supported by a company that gave me some support, and it definitely made me swim a little faster. And I was in the lane closest to the wall, so they could stand and see my 60 length swim that I did for the mile. And that was in Omaha, Nebraska, 4 years ago. In 2002, I did a swim in St. Croix. There were actually two swims, a 5 mile and a 10 mile. This red line illustrates the 5 mile. The 10 mile was 2 lengths continuous. The picture that you see on the wall is of the beginning of the swim towards the Buccaneer Hotel on the far side of the island. And there were about 250, 300 swimmers in there. Beautiful swim in beautiful clear water, and quite exciting. At the end of the swim, when they handed out the prizes, I was given a standing ovation by all of the swimmers that swam, and that was one of the big honors of my life, to be acknowledged in that manner. Now on the left, from top to bottom, are some medals and some patches that were framed by Janice. We stopped framing after a while of the swim in the national championships in 2001. On the right is a picture of a world record that the swimmers on the right set in a relay race with those 4 swimmers in 2002. The next one over is a plaque which was given to me for a swim later on, I forget when. The next picture shows a couple of swimmers. We swam from Robben Island to the mainland in Cape Town, and a friend of mine is a doctor. The water was 51 degrees and we swam the 7 miles from Robben Island to Cape Town in the shark-infested waters where they have the great white sharks that are up to 30 feet long. This plaque here represents a swim that I did in Honolulu. It was the National Masters Short Course Swimming Meet in 2002, and there are 6 gold medals on that one. The following picture is a cover of a swimming magazine in England called Watermarks, of Sandy Gallatley, a Scotchman, and myself, who swam in the World Masters Olympics in Munich. Coming down to the picture on the right is the plaque that was awarded to me by the Texas Swimming and Diving Hall of Fame, which I was inducted into about 5 years ago. The next picture is a letter from the International Swimming Hall of Fame, which informed me that I was to be inducted into the International Swimming Hall of Fame. And following that is a picture of Greg Louganis, the diving champion from Samoa who won the Olympic diving championship hit his head on the platform, and that's him actually presenting the award of fame to me at the International Swimming Hall of Fame in Fort Lauderdale, and he is an Olympic diving champion. The plaque that you're looking at now, the frame, is a 7-kilometer swim which I did in a lake near Cape Town the week before I did the swim from Robben Island to Cape Town. And that's just a commemoration. I actually won my age group and I came in third of all the swimmers. The next picture to the left is 3 swimmers that swam in the Commonwealth Games in Vancouver, Canada, Rex Aubrey and Peter Duncan. Rex Aubrey was from Australia and Peter Duncan from South Africa, and that's 1, 2, 3 as how we swam the race. It was the 1 mile, and that was when I was given my gold medal by the Duke of Edinburgh. The pictures on the left at the bottom, black and white, are a turn on the swim, and also the 3 swimmers as they got their awards from the Duke at Vancouver. The following swim is a headline that I got from a magazine which enumerated my Swimmer of the Year award, which you saw earlier, the large plaque, Swimmer of the Award by the Swim magazine. The following picture is a picture of me when I was about 18 in Bloemfontein, South Africa, when I was a diver, and that is one of my backward dives that I was doing, and it was shortly after that that I won the Junior National Diving Championships. I think it was 1 out of 18 swimmers that swam that. Now, panning down to the right is the beginning of the Waikiki rough water swims in Honolulu, starting in 1993 and continuing through for 14 years that I swam that swim. I won it every year but 1 year when I came second, and you will see some of the shots. One of them shows a gentleman helping me out of the water, because it's like when an astronaut gets back on Earth, you lose your equilibrium. The next picture shows a man running past a woman, and he actually elbowed her to beat her to the finish, so that it shows you the difference in sportsmanship between one man helping another and another man elbowing a woman so he could beat her out of the water. This is a commemorative plaque poster which was issued after 25 years of doing the Waikiki rough water swim, and that was probably on the final year that I did the 14 swims. The airfares became so expensive that I just didn't want to do it any longer. In 2006, they held the World Masters Swimming Championships in Stanford, and we had a 3-kilometer swim. The course is shown from the top, the green line, all the way around through a marina and then back to the beach, which was the Robert Crown Straits beach in Alameda, and the wind was so strong that it blew a lot of the buoys away, and so we actually had to swim further than we thought because you guide from the buoys. But anyway, I was lucky to win that one in my age group. These are the jacket pockets that were taken off of my uniform when I went to the Olympics and to the Commonwealth Games, and each one of them represents another year, starting in 1950, 1952 and 1954, and that was when I was representing South Africa, and the animal on there is the springbok, and that was the title that you got if you were a member of one of the prestige swimming or athletic teams. You were a springbok. The Honolulu rough water swim took place a number of years ago, one of 14 of the swims I did. Of 1,000 people approximately that had entered the race, the meet directors warned that there was a strong current coming against them, and they said if there were some swimmers that were not experienced in rough water ocean swimming, they should stand down. 361 of the approximate 1,000 swimmers had to be rescued by helicopters, surfboards, boats, anything they could find to finish the Waikiki rough water swim. I was the oldest swimmer to finish out of all of the ones that started in the beginning of the race. And that was an absolute chaos because some of the swimmers went to the shore and disappeared, and they didn't know if they drowned or whether they'd gone home. So it was a bit of a mess. So in all it was quite chaotic. In 2005 I decided to attempt to swim the Straits of Gibraltar from Tarifa, Spain to the shore of Morocco. And the swim took 2 hours and 5 minutes, and I was successful in completing the distance, and I was also the oldest person to ever swim the swim. And that is one of my most memorable swims because there were as many as 14 ships crossing back and forth across the Mediterranean. I had dolphins swimming around me and whales swimming around me, and it was really a very, very fine experience, a very emotional experience. And the picture on the right is the man that is the organizer of the recognized swims across the Straits of Gibraltar. The poster is from the Olympic Games in 1952, where I swam and represented South Africa, and it shows a runner with the world behind him from Helsinki, Finland. And it's one that was left on one of the walls, and I decided it was worth keeping. This is a piece of furniture in our den, a little coffee table, and what it does is it incorporates a selection of medals from various Masters swimming meets. There are a few national swimming meets, but just a selection of a few medals, approximately 150, I'm not quite sure, of the various meets we've swum in, the various plaques like the AAU Championship, Masters Championship, All-American Championship, and USMG, Masters Swimming Championship. The last group on the right will be the USMS on the right here. It will be the final one of this particular view. These bowls were presented to the winners of the Waikiki rough water swim in Honolulu, and they represent first places in the swim. I think I swam it 13 or 14 times, and I'm the fastest of one of the age groups who have ever completed it. The bowls are made of monkey pod wood, and the little certificates show the time that it took to make the swim, which was 3¼ miles from one end of the Waikiki beach to the other. So the certificates are the proof that the swim was made and the time that it was accomplished in. These are some of the certificates, not all of them, that were presented when you received your bowl commemorating your swim on the Waikiki beach. I think the fastest I swam it was about 3/4 of an hour, and the slowest was about 1 hour and 15 minutes, and it depended on the currents and the waves and the swells that were involved. And there were as many as 1,000 swimmers at one time that competed in the Waikiki rough water swim, and it was a bit of a maelstrom at the start when everybody was trying to get going. We went off in 3 waves, and I tried to get in the first wave, which was the most successful and the fastest swimmer, and the ones at the back were the stragglers. But anyway, these are some of the memories from Waikiki, which I don't swim anymore. It's been a long swimming enough. In 1951, late 1951, at the University of Oklahoma, I was swimming in a swimming meet in Bartlesville, Oklahoma at the Phillips 66 indoor swimming pool. And these pictures were taken there. I swam a number of events, and I was given a trophy by the then, I think he was the vice president of Phillips Petroleum, and this was one of my earliest memories of swimming in a competition in the United States. This will give you an idea of some of the medals and trophies that you have not seen in these boxes behind the curtain. And to me the medals really don't mean much, although I must have a bit of an ego. But I think that it's what is behind the medals that's important, and that is the friendships you create, the travel you do, the nice places you dine, and all of those things add up to a happy life that my wife and I have had through the years, and she has been a 100% supporter of me, otherwise this could never have been accomplished. I'm sitting in our living room with my wife Janice, and just looking through some of the old magazines and things that we have, and Dean Abel is our good friend who's doing a documentary on a lot of my awards. He's an eminent retired photographer from the Giddings Studios here in Houston, which was one of the top studios, and I am going to autograph this magazine for Dean to keep, which is a swim magazine from a number of years ago. So Dean, I want to tell you how much we appreciate your taking your time to do this video for our family, for our posterior, for our future generations, and I will now autograph it for you, and I hope that this is a way to show you my appreciation. And thank you so much, Dean.
And we thank you for the magazine, and especially for your friendship, both you and Janice. While Graham is autographing the magazine for me, I thought I'd show you a little of their hallway. If there's anything that they love more than the sport of swimming, it's their family and friends. And the hallway shows it so beautifully. It's not a professional gallery, it's their friends and family. Both sides of the hall are lined with hundreds, if not thousands, of snapshots, professionally made photographs, just wonderful. Throughout the 44 years of my professional photography career, much of the time our slogan was helping people preserve proud and happy moments. I could not have done it better than they have done it for themselves in this beautiful gallery of photographs in their hallway. The photos go on and on. Absolutely magnificent. And doesn't this collage just say it all?
At the National Senior Games in Cleveland, Ohio, this picture was given to me by Ray Schaaf, who was a member of one of the teams, and I think it's appropriate for the saying that he said on the collage that he gave me. It says, "The measure of who we are is what we do with what we have." And now I want Janice to say a few words.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us as your guest. We value and treasure your friendship for both of you.